Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. And today we we're talking about sports, opportunity, and fairness in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Before I continue, let me ask you a question. How many young people in this country actually understand what is the CARIFTA Games? And I'm not talking about athletes that belongs to clubs. I'm not talking about officials. I'm not talking about the coaches. I mean the average student running barefoot on a school field somewhere in Georgetown, Sandy Bay, Barley, Trumuka, because I can tell you something. There are talented athletes all across the country who will never even get the chance to try. And it's not because they lack talent, but because they lack opportunity. And that is the problem. Let's talk about how things are done in Jamaica. In Jamaica, athletics is serious business. The Jamaican Athletics Administrative Association holds massive massive national character trials every year. Hundreds of young athletes show up, and if you place first, sometimes second, you make the timing, you make the team. Simple, clear, transparent. Their famous school championships produces star athletes every year. That system produced athletes also like Usain Bolt. And why, you may ask? That's because talent is constantly being discovered and pushed forward. Now, let's talk about St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The selection is handled by the team athletics, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They have qualifying standards, they have trials, but here is where the real problem begins. Because the system only works for you if you are already inside of the system. Meaning what? If you are already a part of a track club, if you have coaches guiding you, if someone already knows your name. But what about the child running on the school sports day who has never even heard of the Carifta? What about the student who comes from a struggling family who cannot afford spikes, travel expenses, or club fees? What about the athlete whose school doesn't have a strong athletics program? That child might be the fastest runner in the entire country, but nobody would ever know. And there is something else that I would have witnessed at the trials that really concerned me. An athlete got injured during the event, and the response was honestly confusing. The Red Cross volunteers looked unsure of what to do. And for a moment, there was no other trained medical professional rushing in to properly assess the athlete. Now, let me be clear, this is not about blaming volunteers, but sports today has evolved far beyond the old days where someone would simply say, shake it off or tough it out. Modern athletics requires proper sports medicine, trained medical staff, and clear emergency protocols at these kind of competitions. So when our young athletes step onto that track, their safety should be just as important as their performance. And here's another thing. Many school athletes across St. Vincent and the Grenadines do not belong to track clubs. There are very few talent spotters going to school sports. Very few people looking for raw ability. There are very few people asking, who is the fastest child in this school? Instead, we keep recycling the same small circle of athletes, the same clubs, the same networks, the same familiar names. And I'm going to say something that maybe some people might not like. Sometimes it's all about friend first and talent second. And that in itself is very dangerous for the future of sports in the country. And let's be real, something else that is holding back sports in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is this. There is this mindset where some people feel that because they have been in a certain position for a long time that they automatically know everything. But sports doesn't work like that anymore. Athletics is constantly evolving, training methods change, technology changes as well, athlete development changes. The rest of the world keeps learning and improving their standards. So if we keep operating with a mindset of we've always done it this way, we're going to stay stuck in the past while other countries continue to move forward. Because if we are serious about athletics here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I I think these are some of the things that would happen. Officials would go at every school sports in the country, North Windward, North Leeward, Mespo, everywhere. They would be watching, they would be timing, they would be taking names, they would be inviting athletes to development camps, they would be creating opportunities for the young people. But instead, many children don't even know what is the CARIFTA Games. Think about that. One of the biggest junior athletics competitions in the Caribbean, and most students have never even heard about it. How is that possible? That tells me something. It means that the event is poorly advertised and poorly promoted locally. And here's the sad part. Every year when CARIFTA comes around, we ask the same question. Why are the other countries dominating? Why does Jamaica always perform so strongly? But the real question is, are we giving every talented child in St. Vincent and the Grenadines a fair shot to go to the CARIFTA Games? Or are we only seeing the ones who already have access? Because talent is not the problem in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So let me repeat that. Talent is not the problem. Opportunity is the problem. Exposure is the problem. Access is the problem. And let me say something that we have to be honest about. We we don't take athletics serious enough in our country. I watched the CARIFTA trials and I was shocked. They had athletes running 400 meters without starting blocks. In modern athletics, that is basic equipment. In fact, many athletes in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I would, I would say over 80% of athletes don't even know how to properly come out of the blocks. Meanwhile, in Jamaica, children at the primary school level are already learning block starts and proper technique under the guidance of the Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association development system. So when our athletes, the few from the bunch that they have given the chance to go. When our athletes reach CARIFTA and line up besides competitors who have been properly trained for years, you see the difference immediately. And this is not about blaming athletes because the athletes are doing their best. The real issue is that we have to raise the standard of how we prepare our young people for international competitions and stop thinking small when it comes to sports development. So when I saw that situation where in this day and age you have athletes doing 100, 200, 400 meters and not coming out of the starting blocks, it really made me question how seriously we are taking athletics preparation. Because in international competitions, in regional and international competitions, you have to come out of the blocks, and the start alone can determine the entire race. If an athlete loses even a fraction of a second leaving the blocks, the race can already be over. So, as I mentioned, these are things that we have to look into. Somewhere right now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there is a 15-year-old boy who can run faster than half of these athletes being trained. Somewhere there is a young girl who could become the next champion sprinter. But if nobody sees them, if nobody guides them, if nobody opens that door for them, their talent will quietly die right there on the school field. And that is something that we have to fix, because sports should never be about who you know. Sports should be about your performance, how you run, how you jump, how you throw. That's how champions are discovered. So maybe it's time for a bigger conversation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And something that we have to address is how we view sports in general. Too often, athletics is treated like a hobby instead of a serious path for young people. From a young age, many students are told that academics is the only real route to success, while sports is something you do just for fun. But in today's world, that thinking is outdated. Across the Caribbean and internationally, athletics has opened doors to university scholarships, professional careers, and global opportunities. Countries that perform well at these competitions, like the CARIFTA Games, they understand that academics and sports should stand on the same level in developing young people. A student can excel in the classroom and still pursue excellence on the track, the field, or the court. So when we start treating sports development with the same seriousness that we are giving to academics, that is when we will truly begin to unlock the full potential of our youths. Maybe we need more talent scouting, more outreach programs, more promotion of athletics, more transparency in selection, and most importantly, we need to have a system where every talented child gets a fair chance to try, not just the ones that are already inside of the circle. Because if we truly open the doors, St. Vincent and the Grenadines might be able to discover something incredible, the next regional champion, the next Olympic athlete, the next Caribbean superstar. But we have to first stop our small mindedness and start to think about the entire nation's talent pool. At the end of the day, this conversation is not about attacking anyone. It's about asking an honest question as a country. Are we really giving the young athletes the best chance to succeed? Because talent is not scarce in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If you walk into almost any school sports day, you will see raw speed, raw strength, raw potential. The problem is that potential is often never nurtured, never guided, and never discovered beyond the school field. Meanwhile, in countries like Jamaica, they have built systems through organizations that identify talent early and develop it properly for competitions like CARIFTA and so on. So maybe it's time for us to stop limiting opportunity to the same small circles and start building systems that truly look for talent everywhere, from villages to towns, from the smallest school to the biggest one. Because the next great Vincentian athlete might not be in a club, because I don't know how many of you would have watched the the character trials from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but you would have noticed that the majority of the children who were trying out for the CARIFTA games were people from clubs. But what happened to the rest? Young people across the country that do not belongs to the club, to the clubs are the top schools like St. Vincent Grammar School or St. Martin. I mean, come on. They too need an opportunity to shine, just like the ones from the clubs are given the opportunity to. So I would like to hear from you. Do you think the selection process is fair, or do you believe that many talented young athletes are being left behind? I'm gonna just stay right here. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you for a little bit more chit chats in the future. So until next time, bye bye.